Everyone, welcome back to Starfish Design. In this tutorial today I'm excited to show you how to make this gorgeous wine caddy and matching coaster set. What I used to create this design was a crafted elements silicone mould for my wine caddy, and also I like to use this long mould to make my coasters. So to make this gorgeous set, what I have done is incorporated a 1950s weatherboard which has the original paint and patina on it, and I've also put in some silver vintage beads and a little bit of glitter for the bling. It looks absolutely beautiful. It's going to be perfect for my next Wine Friday, and it would also make a fantastic gift. Super easy to do, a little bit of patience and you can make this. So grab your materials together and let's get creative. So first you need to choose your wood and cut it out. I'm using the Crafted Elements template, which is really handy for getting the wood to fit, and I cut it using my jigsaw. I then sand the sides down to fit the mould and drill a hole for the centre. So make sure your mould is clean and then spray a mould release. Now push your pieces of wood into each of the moulds. Mix up your resin. I'm using ArtCote resin from Resin Australia. Now I weight the boards down with some bricks. Make sure you put the plastic cookie cutters down first so that the brick doesn't stick to any of your wood parts. So for this base layer I'm using a colour called Lime Sherbet from Resin in Australia. Using a paper cup you can pinch a pouring spout and then just very carefully pour a thin base layer into your resin mould. This is a thin layer that we're going to leave to cure overnight, and this helps seal in the wood ready for the river pour layer the next day. Using a low setting on your heat gun, you just want to give it a gentle heat just to release the bubbles and not melt your silicone mould. So just cover this and leave it overnight to cure. The next day you can remove the weights because the resin will have sealed down the wood. I like to use baking paper to protect a lot of my surfaces. It's a really inexpensive way to protect them from the resin. Now I'm mixing up some river pour resin. This is because this is going to be a deeper layer. This is just going to be a clear resin with no pigment added. So I'm using a vintage silver bead necklace, and I've taken some of the beads off to incorporate into the wine caddy, as well as some beautiful crystals. So you're just going to place your beads and crystals throughout your project. You can add as much or as little as you like. So because we've already poured a base layer that is mostly cured, the beads are just going to sit nicely above the bottom of this design. Now I just pour my deep pour river pour resin along across the top of all of the beads, and I fill it right up to the line, the top edge of the wood. Make sure that your surface is nice and level as well. So now you want to use a heat gun just to release the last bubbles and then cover it and allow it to fully cure. Once it's fully cured, you can very gently, carefully release it from the mould. Just gonna say hello from New Zealand. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I like to just lightly sand off those rougher edges. I also like to use a router tool just to give me a soft curve on all of those top sides. So I also do the coaster edges, and I cut this piece into 4 separate coasters. Now I mask off the underside edges. So this will capture the drips coming off the top coat of resin. I also like to use a liquid latex for the underside of the resin parts of my projects. This makes the drips really easy to remove. I'm using ArtCote resin for my top finish coat. This is from Just Resin in Australia. So I apply a thin layer of resin over all of the parts to this project first. Then I spread it out across the sides and the top surface with my gloved hand. Now I just drizzle another thin layer of resin over the top just to create that nice doming effect. Now just use a gentle flash of your heat gun just to warm that resin up and release any last bubbles. So the resin settled down to a really beautiful soft doming effect. I'm just going to cover it now and leave it to fully cure. Once your project's fully cured, then you just want to gently heat the underside tape and pull off any resin drips. Pull off the latex rubber and just pop those other drips off. So to finish, you can just sand off any other drips, and I rub a natural beeswax oil on the underside.